Well, Gary, a positive to come out of Saturday was that you got to see one of your favourite former players, Sam Fleming, who came down to visit from Maffra. There's probably not much to talk about else, is there?
No, you're right, mate. And as you said, yeah, he's one of my favourites. And Johnny Baird's been here as well. And, of course, I think I even said at three-quarter time that those two boys should get their boots on and, of course, get out and give us a hand. But, you know, they're just been absolute champions for us. Their character and the way they've led the team over a long period of time, and that mantle has well and truly been passed on in the last, obviously, 6 months. And I'm sure they would have been thinking, as we all were, how disappointing it was. And I know we've lost previous games, but I was probably the most disappointed I've been all year after that particular match. It's another game against a standalone club. We probably had genuine optimism coming into the game, and with really 8-9 minutes to go in the match, we could have possibly been only a goal behind with some sort of momentum if potentially Huey and Josh's kicks go through. But then, of course, we just failed to show that resolve again, and it seems to be whenever we get headed and the pressure really becomes certainly something that is quite significant within a quarter or a match, we just haven't been able to show enough resilience to actually hang in there and just keep hanging in there. And if you keep hanging in games, it's amazing what that then does to the opposition. And then all of a sudden they become players that make mistakes. All of a sudden there might be a turnover. And if you look at a pattern in the last few weeks, it's been, OK, we can score goals from stoppages, but it's really been our turnovers that then the opposition have been able to score, and that's pretty much been the difference between a winning game and a losing game.
So in all seriousness, another disappointing effort overall. 35-point loss was the final margin. Who we must say that, yeah, Coburg are a much improved side this season under Peter German. But again, those last quarter fade-outs are proving to be pretty costly because, as you mentioned, 20-minute mark of the last quarter, it was basically a 10-point ball game. So the scoreline won't tell the tale again that it was incredibly frustrating to lose in the same manner. And, you know, the game was there to be won again.
Oh, you're right. And look, we probably took a bit of a risk by selecting Huey and Josh because they've both missed significant amounts of footy over the last number of weeks, but we felt that their leadership and their presence would certainly give us something compared to potentially the guys who didn't make the senior grade. And there has been consistent patterns all the way through our games, and when you sit down on a Monday and do your review, there has been decisions that ultimately have been, and I wouldn't like to say it, but it almost shows a bit of a lack of care and not playing the percentages. And I always go out at the particular breaks and talk about taking a risk, but it's got to be a calculated risk. And of course, literally sometimes I think the players are saying, well, Ayres said, let's take a risk, so I'll just take a risk because that's what Ayres said. But of course, we don't want that. And the mental strength of each particular player becomes something that we need to have right at its very, very best, because contributions are made from a total team effort, and victory only becomes really doable if we have a team effort. And of course, we're just getting too much of a gap between the good performances and the not so good. And if you probably think the best players on the weekend, they were Lucas Cook, Damien Mercedes, Luke Tynan and probably Dan Noonan to a lesser degree, and of course we're all pretty sure where we know where they play, and that's in defence. So that's indicative of what we had to withstand on Saturday, and even probably to the inside 50s. It was 54-39 I think from memory, so it was a big, big difference, and it might have even been actually a little bit more than that. So we go into thinking, well, okay, where's our ball movement? And we couldn't even get the ball out of our defensive 50 in that second quarter, and we're probably lucky really that we were still within the game as late as we were, because they kicked 7 straight points. So our ability to dispossess the opposition, that becomes by really having genuine pressure applied when we don't have the ball. And if we don't have it, the opposition have got it, or it's in dispute. So there's been an attitude that hasn't been great for that real manic pressure to be applied for longer periods.
So touching on another couple of positives, we probably would have lost by a fair amount more if it wasn't for Lucas Cook down back. And I thought there were some better individual performances from players such as Tom O'Sullivan and Damien Mercedes, who you already mentioned as well.
Yeah, that's true. And obviously with Tommy, his year, I'm certainly sure he would say has not been up to anywhere near what he showed last year. But I think that's probably a bit an interesting situation with that particular question, is that if you think about the group itself, and if you think about the midfield, we've had John Baird, we've had Shane Valenti, we've had Toby Pinwell, who we still have, we've got Chris Kane, but Chris hasn't played much footy. Jimmy Magna has really not played at all this season, and of course you could throw Mitch Wooforden in there, and possibly even Julian Rowe, who might have occasionally played in and around the wing last year, and all of a sudden Tommy was about probably 6th or 7th behind those guys. Now all of a sudden with a bullet he's probably got to jump into about position number 2 or 3 behind possibly Toby and Nathan Batsanis, and Damien Mercedes probably similar because he would have had Tynan, who had a stellar year last year, Dan Noonan, Sam Fleming, Marcus Merigliani, Marcus Davies. So all of a sudden Damo has probably got to again come in with a bullet at number 2 or 3. So without that nucleus of strong, really consistent, hard-nosed competitors, you get exposed a little bit, and I think that's probably what's happened.
So because of the situation that we are now in, our chances of finals are looking more remote by the week. So at what point do you change your approach as a coach? I mean, as it stands, do you keep picking your best 23 in holding out hope of trying to pull off that miracle of getting in the finals, or do you begin to look ahead to next year by beginning to give some exposure to some of those younger guys in the Development League who, we should say, played really well in their victory on the weekend and stayed in the finals mix? But, I mean, what's your approach, as coach from here on in?
Yeah, well, as you said, we're still mathematically a chance, and that's always a good thing. But, of course, we've got to actually make that happen. And it's a little bit of both, really, to be honest, Sam, is that we've got to look at young boys who deserve a go. The reserve, certainly, or development, has pretty much mirrored what we've done at senior level. There's been a lot of inconsistent play, and there hasn't been really a number that's actually been week in, week out that have put their hands up. On the weekend, I thought Sam O'Sullivan was terrific in the reserves, so he'll get an opportunity. Chris Kane, hopefully he'll be over his little heel, so there's a possibility there. Guys like Will Johnson went back and played okay. Clay Johnston went back and played okay. Johnny McKenzie went back and played okay. So it's not as what I like to call their form, which is that term blue chip form, and we just haven't had it all year. And it's really been extremely interesting that what we've been known for is a consistent work ethic and work rate and contribution, and they're all trademarks of the great Port Melbourne sides. Whereas this year it's just been, chalk and cheese. So we'll have a look at it again, and we'll try and pick our best 23. Shannon Lang's been able to get through 3 or 4 games now, so he's a possibility. And we've just got to see that Huey and Josh both pulled up well from their game for a number of weeks. So there's a little bit to work with, and it's a case of just trying to find the right mix. And hopefully we'll do that and get back on the winners list for sure against Sandy.
Well, Gary, thanks for your time again today. Bad luck again on the weekend, but we'll continue to cross our fingers and hope for a turnaround this Sunday against Sandringham.
Well, that's the key, Sam. And it's not bad luck, mate, because basically what you do is you make your own luck, and of course the harder you work, the luckier you get. That's been a philosophy of mine. So we've got to make sure that we keep instilling that sort of work ethic in the players, and certainly confidence is down at the minute, but the best way to get that back up is by winning.
Thanks, Gary.
Thanks, Sam.